All right, we'll bring, oh, sorry, Kate, go ahead. Okay, all right, we'll bring our Borough Council workshop meeting for July 17th. We'll start with our agenda. Can I get a call to order?
President Ferguson.
Here.
Vice President Gerard.
Here.
Councilmember Burns.
Here.
Councilmember Fagan.
Here.
Councilmember Cresser. Here. Mayor Gerard.
Here.
Junior Councilperson Weeder.
Here.
Borough Manager Snyder. Here. Borough Solicitor Harper.
Here.
All right, if everyone can stand, we'll do our Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, I'll apologize. We didn't find or didn't arrange someone to do the invocation today. Would someone like to volunteer to do our invocation?
I can do it.
Okay.
As we gather here today as members of the Hatfield Borough government, we pray that we are ever mindful of opportunities to render our service to our fellow citizens and to our community, keeping in mind always the enduring values of life, exerting our efforts in those areas and on those things on which future generations can build with confidence. Let us continue to strive to make a better world. Amen.
All right. Thank you, Madam Mayor. All right, we'll start with item 1, approval of the meeting agenda. Can I get a motion to approve the agenda for this July 17th, 2024 workshop and regular meeting?
So move.
Second.
I have a motion from Councilwoman Cresser, a second from Councilman Burns. Any questions, changes, or amendments? If nothing, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? There are none. All right, item 2, approval of the meeting minutes. Can I get a motion to approve the meeting minutes from the July 19th, 2024 workshop and regular meeting?
Second.
Got a motion from Councilman Gerard, second from Councilwoman Cresser. Any questions, changes, or amendments? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? There are none. All right, item 3, public input. If there's anyone here from the public who would like to speak, we'd ask you to raise your hand and walk up to the podium. Make sure the green button is lit. And state your name and address and the reason for addressing council. Don't everyone jump at once. All right, with nobody moving to the podium, I'll assume there is none, and we'll go to item 4, announcements.
Next Borough Council meeting is the August 21st workshop regular meeting at 7 p.m. in council chambers. The next Planning Commission meeting is scheduled for Monday, July 22nd at 6 p.m. in council chambers. I am 99% sure that that meeting will be canceled due to lack of business, but we will make that announcement by the end of the week. Borough is scheduled to meet Wednesday, July 24th at 8 a.m. in council chambers. And the movie in the park is scheduled for Thursday, August 22nd at 7:30 p.m. Centennial Park on Cherry Street.
Do you need any help from that, for that, excuse me?
I believe Lindsay will probably send an email out asking for volunteers. I know if Harak talked about that. That's normally what she does.
Okay. All right, any questions? If not, we'll go to item 5, our reports for standing committees and the mayor. So we'll start with budget, labor, and finance. As the chairman, we did meet to talk about a couple of matters. Nothing that we can really expound on tonight unless I'm remembering correctly. So if there's no questions, we'll go on to planning, building, and zoning.
Planning, building, and zoning, we're going to schedule a meeting for this coming month to meet with the committee and the zoning officer.
All right.
Nothing to report.
All right, any questions for Larry? If not, we'll go on to public safety.
Public safety met tonight prior to the meeting, and we were going over the Bike More, Drive Less grant that us and the township are going to be partnering with. And we also went over traffic calming. We're going to be looking into a few of the streets that the residents have asked for us to either have an officer sit there or install some kind of traffic calming. So we're brainstorming right now to figure out what we can do with that.
Okay. you want to give some more details on Bike More, Drive Less, or you want to wait?
The Bike More Drive Less, they already did one over in Upper Gwinnett and Lansdale on Broad Street. They added a bike trail that, they said that it's a 68% increase, with more bikes on the road now, since they have their, specific lane for the biking. So we're trying to figure that out a little bit with the traffic calming too, because it worked as a calming over in Upper Gwinnett and Lansdale. Sure.
I'll add on a little bit to the Bike More, Drive Less grant. As Councilmember Cresser said, we received a grant through Partnership TMA with Hatfield Township. What the Bike More, Drive Less grant is going to do, we're creating a bike audit in Hatfield Borough, which is through AARP. There's some grant funding through that. We'll be addressing intersections where we think possible improvements can happen with bike lanes, crosswalks we talked about. If you've ever seen like through maybe more urban areas, there's painted crosswalks kind of for traffic calming. The committee had talked about that before. So that's one of the things we'll be looking at, implementing bike lanes, as Councilmember Cresser said, in the borough where they are possible. We also found out this evening, which was great, that through this grant, we can also do some temporary traffic calming. So if we wanted to put some type of temporary traffic calming on a road in the borough just to see before we would implement something permanently, like a speed bump or delineators out onto the road, we can kind of test that through this grant to see if that would work before we commit the funds to doing that in a future budget. So, like Councilmember Cresser said, it's with Hatfield Township. They currently, the grant kicked off on July 1st. They're actually currently in the process of paving Durstein Road out in the township and adding a bike lane. So that falls in with this grant. So it's just more of a, how we did a feasibility study. I look at it as we did that with the Liberty Bell Trail. It'll be that, but for biking, and how to possibly add that with traffic calming for our municipality. So just doesn't have to be paint on the road bike lane, but there's other opportunities that we might be able to initiate or implement with having smaller roads with parking on both sides. It's a little bit harder for a borough to implement bike lanes and those things just because of the way that we're built and we're designed.
Yeah.
Versus maybe Lansdale, who is a little bit bigger, though they are a borough, and Upper Gwinnett, who was the first grant that they got. It's a 2-year grant, so it's just kind of, we will be putting in the fall informer. If residents are interested, if you know any bikers, or even if you're not a biker yourself, but you're interested in participating, there will be in our fall informer, how you can contact Partnership TMA and be on a feasibility, part of the study, be on the committee, and just work through that process. So it's really about resident engagement as well. Hoping to have some type of map. I really liked, I know Jimmy, you were there when we did the feasibility study for the Liberty Bell Trail, where you could go and you could like pin on a map, like, I would love to see improvements here, I bike here. You kind of picture it to be more for having resident involved in both the township and the borough.
Okay.
2 years will fly by. They said it too. Yeah.
Yeah.
What can you happen in 2 years?
Is some of that grant funding anything we can use for the crosswalk upgrades we're proposing for next year?
So it's.
Or something that can be considered to help funding cover some of that?
Yeah, so we can talk about even like future crosswalks. So I know the 2 crosswalks that we're doing on, if you want to say Tomenton and Broad by Vinnie's and South Main Street, they're funded through the CTP grant and the multimodal transportation grant. So we have 2 grants for those, but when we're doing the audits and the studies with this Bike More, Drive Less grant, it might bring up places where crosswalks could be implemented, and working with DVRPC for funding through that is what we're talking about.
So it'd still be separate from what we already have planned.
It would, yeah,
Okay.
But we do have grant funding for those.
Yeah, no, I was just curious, so, okay. Thank you, Councilman Cresser. Madam Manager, any questions? All right, we'll go on to Public Works, Property and Equipment.
Public Works and Property and Equipment has not met, but we do have a meeting scheduled for August 20th.
So it'll be before the next council meeting. Okay.
Yep.
All right, utilities?
We have not met recently. I have nothing to report at this time.
All right. How about Hurrock?
Borough has not met recently, and I have nothing to report. However, we will be definitely meeting in August to discuss the activities coming up in September. Activity.
Any questions for Rich? All right, Madam Mayor?
I really have nothing to report. My recycling quarterly meeting was not held because we did not have a quorum. So nothing from the mayor.
All right. Any other questions for the mayor? All right, if not, we'll go on to item 6, reports and correspondence. We'll start with our monthly investment and then monthly EIT and LST.
Monthly investment report, along with the cash accounts was in your packet. Just highlighting, we spoke in detail at the last meeting that we borrowed money from investments. Later on in the meeting, we'll be talking about the resolution to pay that money back, but you can see both in the capital reserve and you can see in the sewer capital, you can see that money come out at the, so that's documented in May. You can also see, as we always talk about, electric is doing fairly well out of the 4 accounts. With positive in May of $10,000. Diane is keeping track of the T-bills bonds on the page investment tracking updated. You can see that through May. I'm not sure why it says 24, 25, and 26 at the top. It's all 2024. So I will make that adjustment for the next meeting. Moving on to monthly EIT and LST report. Year to date for EIT, we are at 288,430. In 2023, we were at 280,214. So we're roughly right on where we were in 2023. If you move forward and look, you'll see that August looks like a big month for us. Just hoping it's a big month in 2024 as well. So that will be partially through next month. I'll be able to report how much we've taken in through August and a little bit in July. For LST, you can see, again, we're almost identical to where we were last year. For 2024, we're at 32,774, and in 2023, we're at 32,318. So again, kind of tracking right where our prediction is for our budget. Were there any specific questions about any of the investments accounts or the EIT or LST?
I noticed the EIT. If you look at what we budgeted, half through the year, we're already 63% of that. So can we expect a similar the rest of the year? A similar, money coming in for the rest of the year as we've experienced the first 6 months? Like, it looks like we'll really be able to hit that 455K that we have in the budget. It looks like that's really going to be easy to do.
Yeah, I believe when we talked about it in budget, finance and labor, we were moving up from 425 in 2023, going to move to the 455 in 2024, and made a commitment that we could possibly increase that again. I think we're being a little bit conservative based on the past several years, especially coming out of COVID. We were like, oh, we really could bump this up maybe a little bit more, 475 we felt, but we're like, let's be conservative the first year, increasing it, and then we'll look for the 2025 budget. But yes, I would hope that we continue on the track, and for next year, we can allocate a little bit more revenue coming in on that line item for EIT.
Be careful when we say that, because other people may want to increase their budget, so, what they want to spend, so.
Gotta get through us first.
No names being mentioned. All right, any questions? All right, so let's do monthly zoning hearing board application.
There were no new monthly
Oh,
zoning.
I'm sorry, I missed year to date, didn't I? So, sorry.
The year to date was in your packets through May. You can see when we talked about in April that grant money coming, going out and coming in for the bridge. So that kind of was an anomaly of, the $1 million, you can see how it was March and then it went out in April. So we're fairly close for also the revenues. We moved that money from the investments into our capital projects account, and that's how we pay. So that's why it's a little of an anomaly of $1 million in revenues coming in May. The 500,000 of that, which would have brought it closer back to, is that money that we borrowed. So that's why you'll see an increase there. We have to take that out of investments, put it into our capital projects account, and that's how we pay it. So that was documented there. But if you look down at the bottom, fairly close with revenues and expenses. Obviously positive when more revenues are coming in than expenses going out. So though it's close and roughly budget 45 in revenues received and expenses used 40 through May. So, you know, we seem to be on track.
Yeah. Sorry about that. Any questions? Now we can talk about zoning hearing board applications.
There was no new monthly zoning hearing board applications, though I did have a question if the solicitor heard anything about 103 North Main that's going through the appeal. I have not. Somebody asked if anybody had heard anything. And last, I didn't hear any update on that.
Yeah, I can check the dockets on that, for the next month. I haven't heard a word about it either way,
Okay.
okay? So we didn't take a position on that.
Yes, yeah.
So, I probably should enter my appearance just in case, because after the common pleas level, which is Norristown, if it goes up a higher level, the zoning board can't do it by themselves. They actually need the governing body to be there, so I will, enter my appearance and check the dockets and let you know if there's anything happening. It takes a while. You know, first there's a briefing schedule, then there's argument, then the court makes a decision. Sometimes they make them quickly and sometimes they don't. And then a decision's entered. So, it's not unusual that we haven't heard.
Remind me, what was the appeal based on?
That it's in the R1 district and they wanted to turn it into multifamily, like rent out 2 units instead of just having a single family home.
Okay.
And zoning hearing board denied that variance.
Right.
And so the owner had put in an appeal because he would like to rent it out as multifamily.
Okay.
Basically have 2 units instead of just a single family.
Yeah. But don't you, for the appeal, and maybe this is different, but for the appeal, don't you have to have a basis to say that it's not in conjunction with our zoning or something? It's
You have to say that you proved the requisites for variance and you didn't get it.
okay.
Or you have to have some argument like that. I
Right.
think their argument was what lawyers would call collateral estoppel, meaning, hey, you guys were cool with this and now you're not. You know, that's basically what that means. That's the argument they made to us, you
Yeah,
know?
and that they beautified the neighborhood.
And they beautify the neighborhood, but the problem is that's not a reason for giving somebody a variance. You
Right.
have to show a hardship, not of your own making, that prevents you from using the property the way it's zoned. And I don't
Yeah.
think they could do that,
Okay.
you know, especially where you improve something. You made a decision, you did those things, you know?
Mhm.
And so I didn't think they have a good chance on appeal, but,
Okay.
you know, we'll see.
Yeah. Yeah. Apologies. I know we had this
Right.
conversation before. I just didn't remember. So.
Right. Even if it's a good idea, it doesn't mean you win on appeal.
Right.
You know, that's not
You
enough.
can appeal and sue for just about anything, right? It doesn't mean you're gonna
Exactly.
get it. so.
And the court will give deference to the zoning board as long as they have an opinion that makes sense and, you know, has evidence.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
and
Okay.
our zoning board's pretty good.
Yeah.
Experienced and everything.
Yeah.
So.
Okay. Any other questions? All right. How about Steve Barth report?
So there was no official report in the packet from Steve Barth, but just highlighting that he is currently working on the SEPTA train station, trying to find a tenant. He is working with multiple businesses in the borough on marketing, financial planning, going around. There's a new business coming to what Hattrick's used to be, which is Poppy's Tavern. I believe they might have actually been open yesterday and today, so that's positive. There's a new owner coming into where Five Star used to be, the Mexican restaurant, another new Mexican restaurant coming in. Again, just getting out there, working with any businesses that are interested in having his services on Mondays when he's in the borough. So I've heard a lot of positive feedback from the businesses that they appreciate being able to work with him and kind of picking his brain for marketing or help with financials and those things. So they're very appreciative that council is funding that.
All right, any questions? All right, if not, we'll go to our police department report.
Obviously, there's everything here, but the one thing I wanted to make note of is that hadn't mentioned already, the final permit was approved and they started clearing the area, for the new police station. So,
Yeah.
exciting.
How was the fireworks this year? Any
Uh,
specific incidences or
it was
other than
fun.
what's,
You're always gonna get,
yeah,
yeah, nothing out of the way, which probably worse years ago.
yeah, it seemed a lot calmer, so I didn't know if you guys did anything a lot specifically or just because it rained, maybe it's,
Yeah.
Yeah.
But
yeah,
then people use them off other days.
yeah.
Spreads it out.
All right. Any questions? All right, if not, we'll go to fire department report.
38 calls this month. And it's 206 for the year. We keep on this rate, we're actually gonna be over 400 calls for the year, which is excessive for us. Highest it's been in the 15 years I've been with the company, it's about 335. So.
Hmm.
And it started really slow at the beginning of the year, but it's really got busy. It's not been fun in all this heat.
Mhm. Any specific patterns, any specific thing you're seeing as an increase? I mean, I didn't notice anything when I looked through the numbers, but
Really, no.
yeah, okay.
How are you doing on recruiting?
Recruiting is terrible.
Yeah.
I've not gotten an application in months. We're trying to recruit a new chaplain right now. We do have one candidate for that at the moment. Beyond that, usually go through a few months, I'll get applications for cadets, supporting 15-year-olds.
Mhm.
On very rare occasions, we'll get an application for an adult. If we're really lucky, it's an adult that actually has done firefighting before. That's not very often anymore. So our screening committee's been very quiet.
Go
So
ahead.
I've been watching this statewide. Statewide, you have a lot of company, but boroughs seem to do better than townships at getting new recruits. So
Really?
there's hope there, yeah. Well, because often in a borough, people have a family or generational tradition of doing it. So if your dad did it, you did it,
Okay,
or something
okay.
like that.
Yeah,
Whereas in the townships, you have a lot of people who don't have that tradition and you don't have them around, but it's a problem
Yeah, there
statewide,
used to be 300, 400,000 volunteers in PA, and now there's less than 100,000.
right?
Probably maybe 60, 70,000.
okay.
Right.
Big drop.
So it's I don't know, I think some of our neighboring communities are actually doing recruitment. I've taken note of that. Maybe Telford, which is one their firm represents, also, the borough. I saw they had a recruitment thing going, and North Penn Volunteer Fire Company, which is North Wales, is always looking for volunteers. And even though they serve Lower Gwinnett and North Wales, almost all their volunteers are coming out of the borough.
Hmm.
So that's actually a good thing, if you can encourage people.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah. Do we want, Michelle, do we maybe want to do a study or something and figure out how we can encourage more?
I know we've talked about this before. Maybe I've more talked about it with Bill. There are incentives that the borough can implement, such as tax incentives that have been passed, that if, we could give a certain amount of discount if, you're a firefighter and you own your property in the borough. That came up, I want to say, was it like 5 years, maybe even more than that years ago? It was something the borough talked about. At that time, there weren't many volunteer firefighters with Hatfield that owned their own home or didn't live with their parents where they could be
The
it.
state currently has a program for.
Yeah.
For property tax relief.
Yeah.
It's actually heavily easy. In the past, they've offered like rebates of $100, $200 but the amount of paperwork that was involved,
Yes.
data tracking was just completely what they were offering.
Yeah,
But we do have some members that have been with the company long enough, they're active enough that they could theoretically see their entire property tax bill being forgiven by the state.
Hmm.
So what about,
Waiting for the county.
what about putting something in the Informer or something like that? Would that be helpful to you?
Sure, anything that gets out there and says,
Yeah.
hey, you know. Join me,
Hmm.
you can try.
why don't we investigate some things that maybe help
Might help.
recruitment? So, and let's see what some options are. If there's some state funding out there or something, definitely.
We certainly will not unappreciated.
It's definitely a statewide problem. It's not a Hatfield Borough problem, but
Yeah.
maybe we can do something
Yeah,
about
I
it.
mean, as vice president, I'm basically the HR guy, so I know exactly what we get, what we don't get.
Yeah, yeah. Well, it seems like public service is down across the board everywhere, so I'm not surprised.
Yeah, a lot of our neighbors are having retention across out today. A lot of our neighbors have paid crews, or either at night or sometimes during the day. Trevor Township has a full paid crew all day.
Mhm.
I think Upper Gwinnett has paid people in at night. So it's a shift, and paid service is always much more expensive than volunteer
Mhm.
service.
Right, right. Okay. All right.
Yeah, we can certainly,
Yeah,
and I
let's-
can also look into, I know Bill has sent an email to Aaron and I don't, you might have been on the email, I would assume you were. This was probably like a month or two ago, talking about it and like what the township's doing or what the borough's doing, or what we could do based on the state, different things, and the county, just based on different things. So we can certainly look into that, and we can revisit the conversation that was 5+ years ago about property taxes and offering some type of discount,
Mhm.
like the county does homestead discounts or different things. It's not, that is an option for your municipality.
Have, sorted out how they're gonna handle,
Yes,
so they still haven't
right.
Yeah.
correct,
put
yeah.
anything in place, so probably scrambling at the last possible minute.
Or-
Get something for this year.
Are you seeing a lot of your guys aging out too?
Thankfully, we have a good core of young members. We do have one member who recently hit 50 years of service. He is, it's his wife, cancer, he kind of started not being out as much.
Right.
That's what happens, that's for, but, yeah, we have a good core of kids that started with us as cadets. It's like 14, 15-year-olds, and now they're low 20s. So we're not doing too badly. Like,
Yeah. Okay. All right, there's nothing else. Our EMS report?
The EMS report was located in your packets. Want to highlight, total number of calls, 1,103. 14 of those calls were in the Hatfield Borough zone. And just highlight, normally falls seem to be number one type of call for Hatfield Borough. Sick person kind of rose to, and I'm not sure if that's related to the heat that we've had the past several months and being in the summer, I'm not sure. But that kind of moved up to number one. Falls was still being number two. But again, very low amount of calls for the borough considering the coverage area that VMSC has.
All right, any questions? If not, Public Works, Mr. Steve.
I think the only really two things to really highlight is some of the electric work that was done. 2 poles replaced, one because it was falling over, one because a private resident wanted one moved, and they paid the bill for that to be done, and we have received payment for that. The one that was falling over was just a Sunday call that we just kind of went out, temporarily tied it up to last us until Monday to get it replaced. And then one Verizon transfer where Verizon replaced a pole and they need us to transfer our lines in order for them to finish their job. And then all the rotting storm sewer inlet grates throughout the Heather Meadows community are finally completely replaced.
How are we doing on our pole replacement versus the budget?
We're still doing pretty good. I'm trying to hold off till later in the year to really go after the poles. This way, we don't go and just burn through all the money and then something
all of a sudden
happens
have more
like what
to-
happened on that Sunday where a pole falls down. And now we're in the negative on a line item. So I'm trying to hold off till later in the year. Excuse me, replace them as needed for now and do what is as needed. Part of the Verizon transfers is there's a new system that was implemented. I don't know how many years ago. We just got hooked up with it 2 years ago. It's called Engines, and it's a pole transfer software. So if you're a utility that owns a utility pole and you put in a new pole, you're able to go in through this software and notify who is up to be next to transfer. So what this is trying to do is it's trying to eliminate, if you see, not so much necessarily in Hatfield, but in surrounding a lot of rural areas, you'll see an old pole and a new pole right next to each other, where it's almost like the process has stopped and been like that for possibly decades. Because there's never been a good way to communicate with the other utilities on who is up next. And the procedure is always, the power, the comms, and there could be 3 or 4 different communication companies on one pole. And then whoever owns the pole is responsible for pulling the old pole. So with this software and with this new system that we're hooked up with now, it gives you X amount of days to transfer your things. I don't know what the ramifications are if you don't comply with those X amount of days. I'm not trying to find out. So I'm trying to be, cooperative with Verizon and Comcast. And when they say, hey, we replaced a pole, in the long run, that benefits us, especially if we have our infrastructure on there as well. We get a new pole and it costs us far less to get that new pole than if we do it all ourselves. So I have one that, like I said, on my report that was done last month on Maple Avenue. There's another one on South Main Street that should be getting done this month. And then there's one more on West Broad Street that will be getting done once Verizon reports it to the engine site.
All right, any questions for Steve? I'll just give one shout out. No power outages given the storm, so.
You just killed us.
I didn't just kill us, come on.
Public meeting, so if anything happens tonight, remember who's at fault.
Yeah, and it's all on YouTube, right? So I'm hosed either way, so.
I waive all
Whatever
fault.
you're asked to say it, right?
That's okay, I got a little generator, it'll power the refrigerator at least, right?
You're cool.
All right, how about our engineering report?
I will just highlight a few items from Chad's report in the subdivision and land development. Bennett's Court, construction is nearing completion and site inspection will be performed in the next couple weeks. And they're currently waiting on as-built plans. I know Public Works Director and the engineer will be out there tomorrow, I believe, doing a walkthrough. Code enforcement did give them occupancy permits. There are some settlements that are scheduled for next week in the development, so seems to be moving along. So once Steve and our engineer provide a punch list, we'll be working through that. And in the near future, we should probably start to see some escrow requests coming back from them. We haven't released any money from their escrow that they posted with the borough through this project. So we should probably see that in the next several months as this development wraps up. There were no changes for the Dead Ends land development. They still have to come to zoning. Haven't received anything for that. And same with 153 Penn Avenue is doing like a parking extension. And there's no change from the previous report. They're still working on through that.
Is Dayton's under any time constraints?
No, they signed a waiver
Okay.
of time.
Okay.
I know in their mind, they would love it to keep moving.
Yeah,
but
yeah.
The borough, Kate had them sign a waiver.
Okay.
Yes.
Do we need to have a resolution for the next month? Like, we'll be ready for that?
For Didn't?
Yeah.
No, they have to go to zoning for their, like stormwater, the floodplain, how they were doing something. Then they have to come back here with, like more finished plans, I want to say. There were some questions about the trail connections. Most of the stuff is in Hatfield Township,
Mhm.
their improvements, but, I
They
think,
don't have approval there either, do they?
No.
No. So
yeah.
Okay.
so we're ready when they're ready. Just let
Right,
us
yeah.
know.
And I do keep in contact with the assistant manager over there, because he's the one that's dealing with the Diddens land development, so I'll ask him or he'll ask me if we've both heard anything, and the answer's been no on both.
Any other questions? On the engineering report? If not, we'll go to zoning.
Zoning officer building code report was included in your packets. Nothing out of the ordinary, except you'll see East Vine Street, a property was listed as uninhabitable. That was due to not having water or sewer or a disconnect. That property has been restored and everything is fine. Other than that, just the typical permits and notice of violations were mostly for high grass.
Which seems counterintuitive, right? Since it's so hot, the grass isn't actually growing, so. We were just talking about that before the meeting, so. All right, any questions? If not, we're going to fire marshal, fire safety and inspection report.
Just highlighting, year to date, I think we're roughly around 55% where initiated our inspections. We are currently going back out for some inspections that have failed and working on scheduling the rest of them through the end of the year. So I know they are in constantly doing fire safety inspections.
And were there any more inspections required for the rental properties on, was it Lincoln, where the flooding occurred?
Yes, so as of, I believe not last week, but the week before, Bob went in and did finals on those to be able to rent those out. So most of them, there might be one or two that we're still waiting, but other than that, Bob walked through, and we're able to give them finals to have them rented out again.
Okay, all right. Good. Any questions? If not, pool advisory report?
There was no pool advisory report in the packets.
I will say the pool's been a lot of fun this summer, so, but they've had lots of incidences too. So I don't know if you guys have been reading about the incidences. They shut it down once because they had a couple of situations where adults had to be rescued and within like a 10 or 15-minute time span. So they shut down, and there's been a lot of negative press about it. So, but. All right, if we're done with our reports, we'll go to item seven, manager's report, new business or manager's report, excuse me.
The manager's report was located in your packets. Nothing really new to highlight. Continue to monitor past due electric and sewer accounts. We're currently in the summer, so we don't have shutoffs. We'll be looking to implement that back in September. Any 2024 project updates. We just had a pre-construction meeting today to talk about the roadway resurfacing project. Still looking for the final okay from PennDOT using liquid fuels money, but that project could start as early as next week. Paving West School, June Drive. So Steve's going to be out there on site working with the contractor for inspections. And then just in items of interest, we talked a lot about the Bike More Drive Less grant, but just want to highlight if anyone's interested in the PMEA conference, registration closes August 4th.
Jane, on the utilities project, do we have any idea of the start date for that, or is it too soon? I know the bid was just accepted.
Yeah, so we will award the bid this evening if council approves to award the bid this evening. And then we will let the contractor know, and we'll have a pre-con meeting for that. And then we'll be able to have like more of an official start date.
Okay.
I think now for paperwork and everything, we estimated September. If we were in July is kind of the tentative schedule, but I believe that depends on the contractor. It also depends on working hours, PennDOT, getting materials.
Right.
That type of thing. Sometimes they might be able to be ready in August, but they can't get their materials till September. So we'll have a better idea when we can see when we hold the pre-construction meeting.
Okay, I noticed on the township website, they said that they were going to close down the cow path from Durside to back because of the 309 connector. Is that gonna impact if we have ours going and that being shut down?
So
Any ideas?
I can imagine that it will have some impact on the traffic in the area. But when we were applying for the HOP permit to allow the detour, we made it specifically noted that we were very close to the detour for the 309 connector route and kind of how we can deviate the traffic without making less negative impact as possible. I would assume it would probably have some impact on traffic, the detours being so close to each other, but had not approved all of that, so I'd guess it's not,
Let's say.
yes, yeah.
That, I think that's one lane, right? That's shut down.
Well, it's going to be, they said it might take up to 96 days.
Right,
And then part of it will be one lane going this way and the other part, one lane.
yeah.
So it'll be done. in
Some
two
traffic will
stages.
get through, but
I believe they're actually just limited to northbound traffic. But everything coming from Franklin down is would be diverted off. But they'll always keep one lane open for
One way.
And I know that it's an item to talk about during the pre-construction meeting with, even though it's approved detours and things, we always work out with the contractor, like, hey, we know this is going on this day or this week or school times or school zones. It's always a conversation we have about traffic and how we can make it safe for everybody with making as less negative impact as possible for people traveling in the area. Won't be perfect. I expect delays. It's just gonna happen.
Jamie, excuse me, I
Yeah.
have a quick question. You mentioned about the cutoffs that are still on hold right now because of the summer heat and everything.
Correct.
Do you foresee, and let me sort of preface this, I read recently where they're predicting right now that the extended heat could go into deep September that we've been having this year. I don't know when you usually stop the cutoffs for the fall and winter months, but do you have the possibility of extending that further out based on the weather?
Yeah, so we technically only don't shut off power if you're in a code red or you're in a code blue. So even if your temperature was at 90 degrees and you're not in a code red, we could shut off your power. We don't. We always kind of use the rule of April through September, or November through like November 1st to April 1st, we will not shut your power off. And then April 1st through like October 31st, we will shut your power off, just speaking. It's all just based on the weather and the reports that we get. So I could see us maybe not doing something for what we would say September if it's really hot. But if we had a mild winter, sure, we could shut power off in November or December. I will say that those are rules that the PUC follows. And since Hatfield Borough is not PUC regulated, we are not obligated to follow those laws. We choose to follow them as being providing a good utility. As like a good faith utility, we follow the good practices of the PUC and how they shut off their utility. We certainly could shut off in winter if we wanted to, because we're not PUC regulated. They have regulated times when they can shut off, and it's more based on dates. We just follow them as being like good faith of your utility. Yes, yeah. But I know that we've talked about, like we were going to have a shut off earlier in June, and it was so hot that we chose to wait 2 weeks and have it at the end of June when we could kind of get it. So we've done that based on reports that we got, our weather. So I know it's going to be hot because when you look at the electric bill, it was $180,000 and last year at this time was 140. And I can only imagine that when we look at it again, what we're going to get for next month, it's going to be even higher. Yes, right, yeah.
Thank you.
But also that can, since you're chair of the utilities committee, we can certainly talk about that when we meet for utilities and make any distinctions if we have to. Sometimes it's not a full shut off. We'll work with, if there's outliers with extreme high bills, we'll kind of I hate to say target, but we will address those, not a borough-wide kind of shut off that we normally do with multiple accounts. We've done that before. Unfortunately, we got rid of limiting, which used to be a very helpful tool that we could do 365 days a year, but with our AMI system, we had to get rid of that, which would just limit the amount of power you could have. So we would do that a lot through the winter months, but it's just not something that's offered with the AMI system.
And just out of curiosity, is there any movement on the biblical seminary? What's going on with all of that?
Last that I heard, I wrote a letter of support stating that the borough was in favor of the development and that it was the exact letter we submitted the first time. And I believe I submitted that, it was in the springtime, so April or
Yeah,
May
wow.
for this tax credit, and I have not heard if they've received tax credit funds for that project.
Okay. All right, any questions for the other questions for the manager? If not, we'll, excuse me, we'll go on to item 8, new business and discussion items. Item 8, resolution 2024-14, the designation of agent resolution COVID-19.
So I feel like this was
Sounds-
so long ago, but Hatfield Borough received funds from like reimbursement funds through COVID-19, like a lot of municipalities did, roughly 40, like $4,200, not very much. You know, it was very limited. We actually didn't submit things that other municipalities were, like plexiglass dividers, things. It's kind of like we built this building for a pandemic. We all had individual offices, things they wouldn't provide, like computers, different things. So our expenses weren't that high, went through the whole process, got the money back. They just want to close out the documents. And the previous manager, Michael DeFinis, he's the sign off on it because it happened when he was the manager. And they said that for me to be able to close out the documents, you have to appoint me to be able to sign the documents because he's no longer with the municipality. So it's just a technicality that I'm going to sign off and say, yes, Hatfield Borough received all the funds we applied for, and that I'm authorized to do that. It just seems very long time after COVID that they're finalizing the projects.
Okay.
And it's on for consideration as an action item this evening.
All right, any questions? No, we'll go to item B, resolution 2024-15, the Pennsylvania Municipal Power Agency, PMPA.
So everybody is probably familiar with PMPA, which is the Pennsylvania Municipal PMEA,
Yeah.
Pennsylvania Municipal Electric Association. This is PMPA, which is the Pennsylvania Municipal Power Agency. This is, it's very similar to PMEA, which we are a part of, but PMPA is more of a power purchasing agency. There's different things that PMPA can do that PMEA cannot do. A lot of them revolves around transmission, different types of things. So we've always been a part of PMPA, and it kind of was never really active. It was just kind of on the back burner. There's some municipalities that are part of PMEA that are active members of PMPA. So we're starting to kind of gear that up and just have it in our back pockets if we need to use it, become more active. It's actually allowed by Borough Code, and Hatfield Borough joined in 2008. So what this resolution is doing is designating myself and Steve as the representatives to participate in PMPA. Currently, Steve and I are the representatives for PMEA. I'm the board member and Steve is the alternate. I also serve as the treasurer for PMEA. For PMPA, it would be very similar. We would both be borough representatives, but I would be, as they call, a director or a board member, and then Steve would be the alternate, and he could attend the meetings if I was unavailable. I am also currently the treasurer for PMPA because we just had an organization meeting and they were like, who wants to be treasurer? And nobody said yes, and I said, I'll do it. So it was,
Sucker.
yeah, so I'm like, so it's just a formality, basically saying we are a member of that. We're going to actively participate in it, and Steve and I can attend meetings on the behalf. We haven't really done anything, like I said. I feel since I've worked here since 2012, I don't know that we've really used PMPA the way that PMPA could be used, but it's a good tool to have. We just kind of have to get it going again. So that's what this resolution does, and it's on for consideration as an action item to allow Steve and I to participate in that organization. It's Hatfield Borough who is the member. We're just the authorized representatives.
Yeah, I had a question on the title of director. That's what, that threw me off because I'm,
Yes, I
it
know.
sounds like it's more just a formality in the title, so.
Yes, I wish it was more like board member.
Yeah.
But
yeah.
this is the resolution that was provided by Salzman Hughes, so
Okay.
that's the one that everyone's adopting. I agree, I'm like, oh, director, like alternate director, seems like we would be Diane Bozak for PMEA, but it's really, you're a board member,
Mhm.
and can you serve on the board?
I would just say, it should probably be changed in, paragraph 5, referencing Borough of Lansdale,
Oh, yeah,
so, in the now therefore section.
Who's representing them?
Andy and Joe,
Jamie and-
yeah.
Maybe they need help.
Hey, except you lost, come in,
Got it.
catching everything. That's a show, yeah. All right, any questions? My only question is, how many more acronyms can we have for all of the
No, and it
utilities
gets-
and electric?
Yes, it gets very confusing. They're very similar. That's an association, this is an agency, they have different power, they can do different things. Yes, there's so many acronyms, I feel like, in government in general. Do you feel that way? Yes.
That's why we need solicitors and lawyers, right?
That's right. You
All
are
right.
clarily stopped from saying otherwise.
All right, if there are no questions, we'll go to item C, resolution 2024-16, authorizing the reimbursement of funds for the investment accounts we discussed earlier.
I can do it if you want.
That's right, you go with it.
I'll just keep prepared it, so that's why I asked if she wanted to go over it, but we've talked about this at the last meeting. We borrowed $500,000 from our investments. This resolution just outlines that Hatfield Borough is making a commitment, no more than 5 years to pay that back. This payment schedule that Kate and I had talked about is the same one that we're on right now. So it's roughly $99,000 a year or $8,200 a month. You'll see that on our bill list. It keeps the same as we have been doing for the past money that we took from investments. It will just elongate that time period that we pay that back. So instead of having that paid back by next year in September, it will go for another like 4.5 years after that.
You don't have to do this, but it shows that you're being intentional about having reserves.
Yeah.
You know, you borrowed from your reserves, you pay your reserves back. So it's I don't know. It's binding in the sense that you're doing it formally, you're doing it at a public meeting and you're agreeing to it, but you could change it if you wanted to.
Right. And we did with AMP when COVID hit and we needed some additional funds and we delayed payment for 1 year and then we were back in the paying. And so, yeah, it's,
And it does talk about that as soon as significant or sufficient funds are available, we have the right to pay that back. So I had Kate at that, and like, we have $200,000 and we want to pay it back. We certainly can. We don't have to do this payment, but it just allows us to do this, keep on the same for budget purposes. It's not, we could budget next year for paying a lump sum back. We certainly can do that.
yeah, council members, we talked about that as being good stewards and having transparency. So we thought it was important to do that. So, yep.
So this resolution's on for consideration as an action item.
All right, any questions? All right, if not, we'll go to item D, Broad Street and North Main Street Utility Replacement Project bid results.
So the bids are in for the utility replacement project on Broad and North Main Street. The apparent low bidder is KBC Construction of Warminster, PA. Their total bid was $3,175,264.75. The bid includes total work for Hatfield Borough, which is roughly over $2.3 million, and also includes the alternate of the $811,000+ for North Penn Water Authority's work. You can see on the bid tabulation sheet that's included in your packets, a breakout of where the total cost comes from each bidder. We had 3 bidders for this project. And also a letter from North Penn Water Authority stating that they, as they are an alternate to this contract, stating that they agree with the low bid, and that they are committed to the $811,956.50. They did not have a board meeting prior to our board meeting to vote on it. So they talked about it and issued a letter on behalf as a good faith that they are going to award this bid at their next meeting, because they are part of this contract. So Chad, the engineer, reviewed everything. We checked references. I called a few people. Steve called a few people. And it's on for consideration as an action item to award the bid to KBC Construction so we can start the utility replacement project.
Have they done work for us?
They have not done work for us in the past, but they have done work for Lansdale. They've done work for North Penn Water in the past. They've done work for Upper Gwynedd, many surrounding municipalities doing this type of work in the past. And all the references checked out and they were highly recommended.
So that's on for consideration as an action item to award the bid to KBC.
Any questions? If not, we'll go to item E, Malachi Nesbitt, Junior Council Person Nominee.
I hope everybody had a chance to read Malachi's very impressive resume.
Yes.
So if anybody has any questions, Malachi is here to answer your questions. Okay, I'll give you one.
Yeah.
Of all of your activities, which would you say is where do you derive your most satisfaction from all of these activities?
So I think out of all of my activities and everything I've been a part of, I think something that I really truly enjoy would be all of my work with singing, with my choir, or I don't know if you, I don't say it at least, but or my community service.
And what do you hope to get from being a junior council person? Why did you apply for this?
More understanding on local government. I just recently started finding my appreciation for politics and government. So when I found out about the JCP, I was like, oh, this is interesting. Oh, this is fun. So hopefully you guys let me in. Just like just like an knowledge on local government, and then work with all of you wonderful people, and then further understand about more like the councils and the little stuff that you guys do to get this town from.
Okay. Anybody else have any questions?
Would like to make one comment. Going through this, I'm quite impressed. How do you have any time to sleep? You're in so many different things. And it's just unbelievable.
Great things about insurance.
And you'll be able to come, our meetings go the first and third Wednesday of the month, so.
Yeah,
Here with.
I just started recently, as it started getting more serious, I started getting with my weekly commitments, I started reaching out to them saying, hey, it's a possibility that I will not be here this week and this week. I'm like, why? And like, oh, that's so cool. So yeah, I've definitely dedicated my time already. So, yeah.
Great. Okay, well, I thank you for coming in.
Well, I have a question real quick. So, yes, very impressive resume. Like coming up with questions from the resume is hard. One question that always comes to mind, and I hire people, so this is one of the questions I usually ask too, is if there's one thing you could do over, right? One thing you may regret not doing, or something you wish you could do over, what would it be?
There's a couple things that I would do different. Right now I see Boy Scouts. So I recently transitioned from my old troop to a different troop. I wish I got more done with that last troop, and I didn't, which is unfortunate, but I'm now in a new troop where I can do a lot more and help a lot more people. Something else I would like to have got done in my year at Penfield, I was grown, people grow, make mistakes, and unfortunately, one of my mistakes was getting kicked off of student council. One of my mistakes, and I don't want to really get into it, but I think that's something I want to redo, because I think definitely, it was definitely on me, and I just want to redo it, give myself a better chance.
Thank you for being open and honest. That's, yeah.
Anybody else?
Yeah, just one additional question about the Boy Scouts. Are you, going to try to hit Eagle? I see you're a star.
Yes, so I just recently got started, maybe the week of 4th of July, so hey, I'm gonna be swimming. So yes, Eagle is definitely in my line of sights. I definitely really want to get Eagle. My troop now is they push Eagles, they push involvement. So we just started talking on my Eagle project.
Yeah.
So there's a couple ideas I have, tapping into everything I do. So there was an idea about something involving music, something that involves community service, something involves church. So there's some ideas, but I think I still have some time to narrow it down to
I was just gonna ask you, how old are you now?
14.
Okay, yeah, you got time, okay. Because I know from experience that, school, sports, girls is the downfall of every Eagle Scout. Of actually making it.
You didn't have girls at that age.
No,
like,
but I had
so-
3 boys and 2 of them made it, but 1 didn't. Yeah, okay, yeah, congratulations, and that's very
Yeah.
impressive.
Okay. Thank you for coming in, and I'll talk with you.
All right. Thank you, Malachi. All right, we'll go on to item 9, old business, resolution 2024-13, adopting the contractor integrity requirements.
Yeah, you've seen this before. I did clean it up a little, slimmed it down a little. Chad said that some of the grants that we are getting for the public works projects require contractor integrity provisions. And, most of these things are the law anyway. And he has put them in the bid specs, like he puts them out there with the bids. You're gonna have to abide by these things. So I just cleaned it up a little. I think I covered everything, that could possibly be an issue of prejudice or discrimination or something like that. And including, because this was in one of the government government grant things, that you can't discriminate against somebody for trying to unionize, you can't discriminate against somebody, for any of these things, and you can't engage in stuff that's discriminatory, like sexual harassment or anything like that. So it's very complete, but pretty generic, all things considered. So. And we have to do it if we want to get the grants, so.
Were there any last questions on it? I know we talked in depth about some of the provisions and things in it previously, but I don't have any more questions. All right. If we're done with old business, we'll go on to the fun action items. Is everybody ready? We'll go to item 8, motion to consider resolution 2024-13, adopting the contractor integrity requirements.
Motion. Second.
Thank you, sir. I got a motion from Councilman Burns, a second from Councilman Gerard. Any additional questions? That was my watch. Yeah. Siri gets activated by some phrases. I still don't know what they are. So,
Make a motion.
all right. If I remember correctly, we have a motion from Councilman Burns, a second from Councilman Gerard. Any questions? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? There are none. Motion passes. Item B, motion to consider resolution 2024-14, designating Borough Manager Jamie E. Snyder as the designation of agent for the Director 4506-COVID-19 small project. Did I pronounce that correctly? Can I get a motion?
So moved.
Seconded.
I got a motion from Councilman Cresser, second from Councilman Fagan. Any questions? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? There are none. All right, item C, motion to consider resolution 2024-15, appointing Jamie E. Snyder as the Borough of Hatfield representative and director of the Pennsylvania Municipal Power Agency, PMPA, and Stephen S. Ficker Jr. as the Borough of Hatfield representative and alternate director for the Pennsylvania Municipal Power Agency, PMPA. Can I get a motion?
So moved.
Second.
I get a motion from Councilman Cressler, second from Councilman Gerard. Any questions? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? There are none. Item D, motion to consider resolution 2024-16, authorizing the reimbursement of funds for the investment accounts at Key Bank to repay bond financing.
Second.
Got a motion from Councilman Burns, a second from Councilman Cressler. Any questions? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? There are none. Motion passed. Item E, motion to consider awarding the the Broad Street and North Main Street Utility Replacement Project to KBC Construction LLC in a total amount of $3,175,264.75. I get a motion.
Second.
I get a motion from Councilman Burns, second Councilman Gerard. Any questions? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? There are none. Motion passes. Item 11, motion to approve payment of the bills. You want to look at it first? You want to do the motions? Let's do motions. Motions?
Make a motion.
Second.
I got a motion from Councilman Gerard, second from Councilman Burns. Any questions? All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? There are none. Motion passes. Apologies. I know sometimes we do the motion, but then people have questions. So I was like, should we do questions first or do the motion first? I like doing the motion and then seeing there's questions and walking through it. So I don't know if that's the correct format.
Yeah,
Okay.
I think that's wrong.
All right.
That's Robert's rule.
So, okay. I know we're gonna have an executive session. Is that correct?
Correct.
So we're gonna have an executive session, to discuss real estate, litigation and personal matters. So can I get a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? There are never any. Motion approved. Thank you, everyone, for coming tonight.